Honors Fellowship program is fairly unique, and I think certainly the ambitiousness that we do, I'm going to say totally unique in American higher education from what I've been able to tell. Students who are juniors and preparing to do honors put short descriptions of their projects on a website, and it allows donors to invest in individual student projects.
The William Mary's Honors Fellowships program is a wonderful way for students to propose ideas to do research and for donors to really find out about the research that is occurring at William Mary and fund it and learn about how the results of the research unfold.
It allows donors to really come in at any level that they want to. So a full scholarship is $6,000, but they can give $50 or $1,000, and the site has a little thermometer on it that shows where the student is, and then the next donor will raise that thermometer a little bit further, and so on. So it allows, in a way, kind of group funding of these projects.
As an undergraduate, you're worrying about having a job and paying for things and funding to travel to a lab or to a library. This takes care of this. There's a lot of schools that tear their hair out wondering whether they should put more emphasis on research or more emphasis on liberal arts and teaching. And they worry about, well, faculty are spending all their time getting grants and doing their research, and and students don't get enough attention and so on. I think what William Mary has done quite successfully, and this program really captures that, is integrate the teaching and research missions of the college.
My project for my honors fellowship is on renal cell carcinoma. It's the most deadly form of kidney cancer.
We're talking about diseases in humans, and and when I do neurodegenerative diseases, we're talking about diseases of the brain, and of course you're not allowed to experiment on a live human brain. So how do you get at the data? Well, we can go out and look at the clinical literature, little snippets of data that have been garnered from that literature, and begin putting together a big picture of that neurodegenerative disease.
We kind of have to break things down in the literature to the biochemical level. I consider our lab kind of the middleman between research labs, because we can analyze the current literature out there and kind of test current treatments and also propose new ones. The cool thing about our lab, whatever time you put into it is what you'll get out of it. Like, if you stay in the summer, you can pretty much publish a paper, like, no problem. But if you just try to work when you have a full course load during the school year, it's not really feasible.
My thesis is basically on military war widows and how they deal with grief once their husbands are killed in combat. I interviewed all of them at Fort Hood, which is the largest military installation in the United States. And because of the money that I was awarded, I was able to make the trek down to Texas, establish those contacts, and stay for the summer. I think anytime that there's a population that sort of is underrepresented in the United States or anywhere, if we're given the resources, it should be our ability to sort of peel those layers and figure out certain things that haven't really come to light.
Well, I'm a biology and chemistry major, and I was always looking into how I could fuse those majors and synthesize them into something creative and cool, something that I was very interested in.
And so he had the brilliant idea to combine his language skills with his ecological interests, and decided to sample rivers in the Mato Grosso in Brazil.
It answers a lot of questions about what is happening when industry encroaches on environmental hubs such as the Pantanal, and it can be used as an example for other parts of the world.
I went to the country of Oman to try to figure out what is it that Omanis think about themselves, their country, their national identity. I wanted to study it also from a humanities perspective, and I was looking for scholarship and research done on it, and there was just very little out there from an anthropological perspective or anything that would give me an idea of how are national narratives constructed in Oman. And so I felt like, first of all, I needed to go there in order to get that sense, and that's why the Charles Center Fellowship was so valuable. But going there, I was able to see things in the landscape, in the built environment, in the way people talk about their country, in the clothes they wear, in the architecture, in the music, and just so many different aspects of the culture that helped me to understand the national narratives in a way that I never could have before, and in a way that I couldn't have gotten from just reading literature.
Our laboratory is focused specifically on, well, what is it about resistance training? What are the mechanisms that allow the blood vessels to function better with resistance training?
I've stayed here every summer, but I've always had to do other stuff. And so this way I was able to dedicate my entire summer to my research, which is very important if you want to do an honors thesis, because that's a lot of work. And then I'm hoping to go to Boston this coming, I believe, April, to present my research, so that's going to be really exciting.
And that's a big experience. Most of the time what happens is when they do their presentations, other principal investigators will walk around looking at the different posters and studies that have been done, and when they talk to my students, they often say, so, you know, are you getting your doctoral degree? What are you doing? And she's like, oh no, I'm just finishing my undergraduate degree, and they're usually blown away by that.
We have the Center for Geospatial Analysis here at William & Mary that has trained many students very effectively in the use of geographic information systems. And so when Sarah and I are working together, we're really collaborating because Sarah has a skill that I don't have. So I'm completely reliant on Sarah to do the GIS part of this and do it well, and she has done it very well. Summer salary that she got from that honors fellowship was absolutely critical to give her basically the freedom during the summer to work essentially full-time on her research project rather than having to fit it in with classes and extracurricular activities and so forth.
The research funding for the project allowed me to go to the Geological Society of America's National Conference in November in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I was able to present a poster on my work there, which was really exciting because people from all over the country were there, and a lot of them came up and asked me about what I was doing, and I got to kind of share what I was doing with the wider community.
My junior year, I was in a linguistics class with my advisor, who ended up being one of the advisors of my research my senior year. And we had a guest lecturer from the law school, Professor Laura Heyman, who's a trademark and copyright professor here. And she gave a lecture on how a lot of the language-based discrimination and grammar things that we were talking about in the linguistics program really carried over into certain areas of the law. And so after the program, I approached her and I said, you know, hey, this is really, really neat. And, you know, are there certain areas of trademark law or copyright law or things like this which are really, really riddled with problems that, you know, a greater understanding of linguistics would be able to address? And she pointed me towards this sort of particular doctrine that courts have always struggled with. And that's how it sort of kicked off.
The project that David Hill has been working on is providing radiation shielding for NASA. If NASA hopes to send astronauts to the moon for a habitat on the moon or a long trip to Mars, they don't have sufficient shielding right now to protect the astronauts.
When you leave the protective sphere of the Earth, you start to encounter a lot of radiation of a bunch of different types. And so we want to protect both astronauts and instruments from all this harmful radiation in order to be able to do long-term space flight and space habitation and all kinds of other things.
With funding from the honors, through the honors program, we've been able to purchase supplies, provide David with a summer stipend, and keep this project going without having to look for support elsewhere. It's been a very important component of our program.
In many cases, undergraduate research involves somebody saying, please go work in my lab, follow this recipe, and then give me the results, and then you're done. Here, we actually try to involve undergraduates in the entire research process, from the point of developing the question to reading the background literature, all the way through to the data collection and then the interpretation of it, and presentation, very importantly, presentation of it at national meetings or here on campus.
I think it's marvelous that we're publishing papers with undergraduates as first authors on those papers. And the global community interested in those diseases is accepting this work as important work and as a step forward in what is available for them to understand the disease.
This is important for the undergraduates. It gives them a chance to apply the book knowledge that they gain in their coursework to real laboratory experiences.
Undergraduate students here that do get involved in research in the lab are at the level of a master's student elsewhere or higher. We're doing the equivalent of a master's thesis for their honors thesis.
And now that I'm here, I plan to go into a career of intellectual property law, which is what I did my research on. And before I graduate from my current school, you have to write this robust thing. And since I'll be studying under the same professor who I wrote my research under before, I certainly plan an extension of that. So I think it lends itself to that really nicely.
It's a comprehensive package of funding that supports the entire, you might say, culture of research there from start to finish, faculty member to student, and so on.
Donors can go into the site and give directly to the project that they want to give. And the $6,000 is a full fellowship. So they can go in and they can give $10, $50, $100. It doesn't matter. It all helps. Every little bit helps these students, and everything that they give goes directly to the student.
The really unique thing about William & Mary Honors Fellowships is that we have all kinds of donors who support these projects. It can be anybody from a recent graduate who will fund it with a relatively modest donation to somebody who will fund 2 or 3 different projects. So no matter what type of donor you are, there is an opportunity for you to have a significant impact through William & Mary Honors Fellowships.
This program accomplishes a lot of the main goals that William & Mary sees itself as having. I've already mentioned integrating the teaching and research mission. The goal of engaging more with our alumni base and allowing, as it were, kind of continuing learning from their point of view. Because once a donor has provided some funding for a student, they're able to follow that student's research. The students, all of our students blog about their research during the in progress time. I've run into this problem. I found this exciting piece of new evidence. So there's a lot of engagement there for donors that I think is a real opportunity for them.